I'm 78 years old, and I'm going to tell you something that took me more than 6 decades to understand. Strength can ruin your life. Now, that probably sounds strange coming from a man who spent his whole life trying to be strong, but stay with me. I grew up in a house where emotions were quiet things. My father believed that a man's job was simple: work hard, provide, and don't complain.
If you were hurting, you kept it to yourself. If you were afraid, you swallowed it. If you were grieving, you carried it alone. I never saw my father cry, not once. When my mother was sick for months, he handled the bills, fixed the car, cooked dinner when he had to, but he never once said he was scared. When she finally passed, he shook hands at the funeral like he was hosting a business meeting. I learned from that. A man doesn't cry. A man doesn't complain. A man handles his responsibilities and keeps moving. And I did exactly that. I worked through sickness. I remember one winter, I had a fever so bad the room spun when I stood up, but I still went to work. I told myself that's what good men do. I stayed silent during arguments. When my wife was upset, I would listen, nod, and then retreat into myself. I thought I was preventing things from getting worse. In reality, I was disappearing. When my younger brother died in an accident, I stood tall at his funeral. I hugged people. I told them, "I'm fine, don't worry about me." I wasn't fine. I went home that night and sat in the garage for 2 hours in the dark because I didn't know what to do with the weight in my chest. But instead of going inside and telling my wife I was falling apart, I washed my face and pretended nothing was wrong. I didn't know how to be anything else. For decades, I believed strength meant endurance. It meant absorbing pain without letting it show. It meant being the steady rock everyone else leaned on. And I was proud of that. At 59, my wife looked at me across the dinner table one evening and said something that stopped me cold. She said, "I don't know you anymore." We had been married 35 years. We had raised 2 children together. We had shared a bed, a home, a life. And the woman I loved felt like she was living with a stranger. I remember feeling offended at first. I thought, how can you not know me? I've worked for you. I've provided for you. I've never betrayed you. I've never walked away. But she wasn't talking about my loyalty. She was talking about my absence. I thought providing was love. I thought endurance was love. I thought sacrifice was love. And those things matter, they do. But love also requires presence. It requires letting someone see what's going on inside you. It requires vulnerability, the very thing I had trained myself to avoid. My children grew up with a dependable father. I never missed a payment. I fixed what broke. I drove them to school, to practice, to doctor's appointments. But I rarely told them when I was proud of them in a way that showed emotion. I rarely told them when I was struggling. I never let them see me unsure. I gave my family security. I forgot to give them myself. The real wake-up call didn't come until my wife was 63. That was the year she was diagnosed with cancer. I still remember the sterile smell of the hospital, the pale walls, the sound of machines beeping softly in the background. Hospital rooms have a way of stripping life down to its essentials. There's no room for pretending in those rooms. You can't fix cancer with overtime hours. You can't repair it with a toolbox. You can't outwork it. For the first time in my life, my strength was useless. One night, after a long day of tests and consultations, we were alone in her hospital room. The lights were dim. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. She turned to me and said very quietly, "Why won't you ever tell me when you're afraid?" I almost gave my usual answer, "I'm not afraid." It was sitting right there on my tongue. But something in her face stopped me. She wasn't asking for reassurance. She was asking for me. And for the first time in my life, I admitted it. I said, I'm terrified. Not of losing money, not of losing status, not of being alone in the house. I was terrified of losing her. When I said it out loud, something broke open inside me. I cried in front of her, not a polite tear. I cried the way a child cries, raw and unguarded. She reached for my hand and squeezed it. And in that moment, after 38 years of marriage, I think she finally felt close to me in a way she hadn't in a long time. Why did it take me nearly 48 years to give her that? She passed away 8 months later. People think the worst part of losing someone is the grief. And yes, grief is heavy. It sits on your chest. It follows you into every room. But for me, the worst part wasn't just missing her. It was realizing how many years I had hidden behind strength instead of choosing intimacy. I had spent my life building walls and calling them protection. Young people often think weakness is dangerous. It isn't. Distance is dangerous. Silence is dangerous. Pride is dangerous. You think you're protecting yourself by staying strong. You think if you never show fear, no one can hurt you. But what you're really doing is building walls so high that the people who love you can't reach you. And one day, you look around and realize you're standing alone behind the fortress you built. After my wife passed, my house felt different. It was quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. I would sit at the kitchen table and replay moments in my head. All the times I could have said, I'm overwhelmed. All the times I could have said, I don't know what to do. All the times I could have said, hold me. Instead, I said, I've got it. I'm fine. Don't worry. Those words sound strong. They're often just shields. If I could go back, I wouldn't change my career. I worked hard and I'm proud of that. I wouldn't change the house we bought or the sacrifices we made. I would change the small daily moments. I would sit down and tell my wife when I was scared about the future. I would tell my children when I felt lost as a father. I would say, I love you more often, and not just in passing, but in a way that lingered. I would let my voice shake. I would let my guard down. Because strength without openness is loneliness, and loneliness is a heavy price to pay for pride. At 78, I understand something I wish I had known at 18. Real strength is not the absence of emotion. Real strength is the courage to be seen. If you're younger than me, don't wait 60 years to learn that. Tell the people you love when you're afraid. Tell them when you're unsure. Tell them when you need them. Let them see you. Because one day, you may find yourself sitting in a quiet house wishing you had spent less time being strong and more time being real.